I saved my sister from a nightmare fiancé and now my entire family sees me as the villain. First story. Entitled Family all ganged up on me, attacking me for ruining my sister's life. After I made her realize her fiancé is a narcissistic puss who enjoys bullying and is only liked by her narcissistic father, causing them to break up. Now the family has disowned me and kicked me out, so my sister returned the favor by disowning the entire family. My sister was set to marry a guy who was a complete douchebag. He seemed like a nice catch to any outsider. He was tall, handsome, very confident, a doctor. Basically the sort of guy any woman would swoon over. Unfortunately, he was a sociopathic, unrepentant narcissist devoid of any empathy, who would take out his anger on anybody he felt beneath him, and seemed to enjoy doing it. You know how basically they say, don't look at how your partner treats you, look at how he treats others. And that's how he'll eventually treat you. My sister didn't pick up on that. I picked up on it early. This guy was really mean, would berate and insult people for the smallest thing, and would lose his cool with anybody who looked at him in the wrong way. He started doing it to me. And I told my sister early on, this guy's an arsehole. She was like, nah, you two will eventually get along. You just got off on the wrong start. I told him I've seen him do that to other people. But she seemed to think, oh, but he's nice to me. I'm the special one. Maybe I can change him. Or I have no idea what she was thinking. After about 2 years together, when they were engaged, the cracks were evident. My parents loved him. His dad and my dad go way back. They both went to the same medical school together and have been close friends for decades. Her fiancé is also good friends with my 2 older brothers. After 2 years, my sister was realizing this guy was an arsehole. He's always been an arsehole, and he won't change. There was a really painfully obvious example one day, when we were having dinner, and my sister's fiancé and my dad were having a discussion about something political. My sister tried to offer her opinion into the discussion, and they both snickered. Then this guy just started berating her and ripping into her in front of everyone, making her feel this small. I could sense her pain. She was just quiet and just sat there taking it. I was thinking, what are you doing with this guy? He has no respect for you. He has no love for you. Another time our family was at this dinner function, where a lot of big people were around. My sister's fiancé completely left my sister alone at the table with me, and was sitting at this other table with 2 women, very obviously flirting with them semi-drunk. He just left her all alone at the table. I asked her what was wrong. Why was he ignoring her? She told me they had had an argument earlier, and this was his way of punishing her. You see what I mean when I say this guy is a complete sociopath. My sister and I are really close, and even though I'm younger by far, little brothers aren't devoid of wisdom. And I've been urging her from day one to break up with this guy before she gets in too deep. Well, now that she'd spent 2 years with him and was engaged, she was obviously in too deep. And she used to tell me about all the outbursts he has, and how he treats her with no respect. We often had long discussions, just me and her, where she'd spill open like a can of beans and just divulge all the bullshit tea that he's put her through recently. Sometimes she'd cry, and I'd be there to help her out, but she still seemed to want to stick with him. She actually convinced herself that he loved her behind all that horrible treatment, and couldn't pull herself to cancel the engagement. What with our parents, his parents, everyone counting on it. She knew they'd all say she's crazy, turning down this smart, handsome doctor. Who does she think she is? I kept urging her to break up, but she stuck with the he'll change or he loves me deep down excuses. It all came to a head when one day she very publicly exploded at him. We were having a huge dinner, both sides of our families, and I was sitting next to him. He kept bullying me the entire night. Move your elbows over. Couldn't you wear something a bit more presentable? Stop sticking your hand out like that. It's rude. Don't you think you've had enough of that? If I asked him to pass a bowl or the sauce or something, he'd hand it over, but then pull away and be like, say please, say thank you. He was smiling the entire time, laughing. My 2 older brothers were also snickering. They didn't seem to mind that this guy was publicly bullying me and having fun with it. He and my dad started having one of their conversations again, and my dad started airing out all his general frustrations and disappointments regarding me, and they started both talking about my life openly in front of me. Her fiancé then turned to me and started openly lecturing me, and when I tried to ignore him, hey, are you listening to me? What's the matter with you? Your dad never taught you any respect. My sister just then basically exploded. She was sitting at the other side of the table guessing she didn't want to be near him, but she was watching what was going on the entire time. She just stood up and completely exploded. It was horribly frightening and scary. She started shouting at him. Leave him alone. He hasn't done anything to you. Why are you picking on him? Just leave him alone, etc. I'd never seen her shout like that or explode like that in my entire life. It was absolutely terrifying. We were all stunned and silent. She had tears in her eyes and ran upstairs crying. I wanted to go upstairs to speak with her and comfort her. My dad was like, where are you going? I told him I just wanted to see how sis was doing, and check up on her. He was just like, no, you stay here, you stay seated. So he made me stay seated until the end of the dinner. For hours my sister was up there. I didn't even know how she was. My dad or mom didn't care. My 2 older brothers didn't care. I had to wait hours till everyone left before I could slip up and go talk to her. She was an absolute mess. crying, mascara running all down her face like Darth Maul. I told her she has to end this. She's going to jeopardize her entire life if she continues with this guy. She has to do the painful thing now and rip off the bandage. I told her, you might think it's okay if he just does this to you, because you can take it. But do you really want to bear his kids? What if you have his kids, and then he starts treating them the same way? She finally agreed with me, and said she would end their relationship and break up. It was the only option. I just asked one thing, that she doesn't tell anyone that I convinced her to do it, because they all already seem to have it in for me enough already. Well, the one thing I asked her to do, she couldn't hold up her end. She still somehow let everyone know that I was the one who so graciously helped her make the right decision. Of course, this immediately made everyone hate me. Aside from my dad occasionally going off at me and shouting, it was mostly just the silent treatment and people giving me glares, which was easy enough for me to bear. My sister moved all her stuff over the next few days out of her fiancé's place back into her own apartment, which apparently she's going to live in indefinitely now. Her old room in our house has been converted into a billiard pool table room anyway. My dad and brothers were making my life hell for me. They blamed me for everything. My mom was occasionally nice to me, but she's nice to everyone. I could feel her disappointment with me run very deep. She didn't offer any words of comfort or advice, even though she knew my dad and brothers hated me right now. My brothers basically flat out refused to talk to me aside from a few sentence words here and there. They didn't want to engage with me on any level, even when I'd try to start conversations with them. My dad, I just tried to avoid, so he doesn't have an angry outburst. It all erupted eventually into a huge fight between me and him. He was just shouting at me on and on and on, telling me I was a pathetic loser. Disgusting. My brothers told me how much they hated me. My dad kept saying, it's not enough that you ruin your own life and turn yourself into a failure. Now you have to drag your sister down too and ruin her life. Why do you hate everyone and try to ruin our family? No matter how much I tried to explain how this guy wasn't a good guy, they seemed to think it was just a personal vendetta I had against him. My brother told me that I didn't deserve to have my sister as my sister. I told him to go f himself. My dad was like, what did you say? I told him he could go f himself as well. Admittedly, I lost my cool after hours of all of them attacking me. And I shouldn't have said that. My dad absolutely lost it with me and told me to get out of his house. He never wanted to see me ever again. I tried to apologize. He basically just told me to get out, even though I was on the verge of tears. I left the house, and they locked the door behind me. I called my sister. She came and picked me up and drove me to her place, where I explained to her everything that had happened. She told me she'd call them the next morning and talk to Dad once he'd cooled down, and then he'd be happy to take me back. I was still kind of teary, and she comforted me and told me I shouldn't hate myself or take too seriously what my dad says. And I had been the only one brave enough to convince her to do the right thing. Her place isn't big, but she let me stay there. Her double bed is just wide enough for 2 people. But it was cozy, so we slept well and fine. And the next morning she called up my parents' home. She wanted to try to talk to them reasonably, and see if she could make amends and get them to accept me back. She told me to wait in the bedroom, while she had a really long conversation with my parents over the phone. It went well over an hour, and there was a lot of shouting. She told me she was stunned, and she had spoken to both our parents and our brothers too. She said she couldn't believe it, and was appalled at what jerks they were being. They said they were serious about not letting me back into their home, no matter how much she pleaded with them, and had said she had to go pick up my stuff from my parents' house. My sister drove over there and picked up whatever stuff would fit in the car. I didn't have that much aside from my laptop, books and clothes, and brought it back. She herself seemed horrified at the way they were acting, and seemed to be barely able to believe it. She tried calling them again later, and the next day again. Even though they had calmed down, they were still adamant that I couldn't return no matter how much she tried to reason and plead with them. She eventually got pretty angry with them too. They were seriously trying to cut me out of their life. My sister told me, as a result, she was going to cut the rest of our family out of her life. I told her she doesn't have to do that. She told me she does have to. And she wants to. She said she was permanently cutting off all relations and contact with our father, mother, and both brothers until they apologized for the way they treated me and accepted me back into their family. I told her she doesn't have to do that. She insisted it was the least she could do. Instead of making me feel good, it just made me feel worse and more guilty, like I was responsible for the permanent fracture of our family. So now my sister has completely cut herself off from the rest of the immediate family and cut them completely out of her life. She told me I'm welcome to stay with her and live here indefinitely, as long as I want, even though I barely have any money, and I'm a full-time student, so there's not many ways I can compensate aside from doing chores. She said now that she's actually seriously completely cutting her family off. She'd like to have the one remaining family member close by. So here I am now. I honestly feel responsible for this whole mess of a situation. I think it's good that I helped my sister get out of that horrible relationship with that awful guy. But now look at the fallout. I'm cut off from the rest of the family. They hate me and don't want anything to do with me, and I'm not welcome back there. My sister has done the same to them, cutting them all off. She said even for the rest of her life, if need be. It all feels so horrible and terrible. I didn't want it to end up like this, our family permanently fractured apart, and everyone hating each other. I just want to make peace for the family, and for everyone to love each other again, and get back and forgive each other. I really wish there was something I could do to reconcile them. But it seems so unlikely, especially since nobody seems to want to. And I'm at the center of it all. Any ideas for what I can do to help heal this huge rift and reconcile my family? Or should I just leave things the way they are, and get on with my life, for better or for worse? Nothing I can do to help mend the situation. Told her. Sister was engaged to a massive narcissistic douchebag, who my dad seemed to really like. I convinced her to break up with him. Now my dad hates me and blames me for everything. My 2 brothers also weren't too happy with me, and neither was my mother. It all ended up in a huge fight, and my dad permanently kicked me out of his house, and said he doesn't want to see me again. Now I'm stuck staying with my sister. She called them on my behalf to try to reconcile us. Instead, she ended up saying she's cutting them out of her life, and never wants to see them again, until they apologize for the way they treated me, and make up for it. I feel horrible, and partly responsible for this whole mess, but I just wish there was something I could do to help mend the situation. Second story. Abusive ex tried baby trapping me, but I broke up with him anyway. Now his entitled parents demand my baby, then kidnapped her. Only to get stopped by my boyfriend, who is strong as F. Then they lied to the cops, saying my baby is theirs, and that we physically assaulted her and stole her baby. That's how she got herself arrested. Hello? So this story happened to me for over a year, and I think and hope it has finally stopped. Here is some backstory. After a painful breakup with a guy I was really into, I went back with my ex, and, after a month, ended up pregnant. Because of my religious background, I decided to keep the baby and break up with my ex. He was 6 years older than me, 27 years, and was starting over his career. It had no work, lived off his parents' money, and was a jerk to his pets. He spent all his remaining money on plants. It was his hobby all while I was pregnant. He dismissed all my symptoms, like morning sickness, dizziness, weakness and mood swings, as something I was making up, seeing I was going to have no future with him, and that he might even end up abusing our child as he did with his dog, a sweet pit bull named Andromeda that got constant beatings when he was not in the mood. So I broke up with him, and he was shocked. He was sure that now that I was pregnant with his child, I would not escape him. He even tried proposing to me, but I said no, that I had no future with him, and that he better leave me alone. During my first 3 months of pregnancy, my thoughts of being better off alone were confirmed when he mistreated me emotionally, saying all my morning sickness, nausea, and all the other pregnancy symptoms were psychological, because they were too early on into the pregnancy. He forced me to go to parties, walk long distances, and visit his family, even though I was feeling really sick. So after 3 months of torture, I broke up with him. The next month he came over to my house, called and tried to persuade my parents to tell me to get back with him. My parents told him to speak to me, and that they wouldn't deal with our relationship. My parents are really supportive of me. You see, I was born in Russia, but moved to Ecuador when I was small. I have fair skin, hair and eyes. In the country where I live, mostly everyone has dark features. I was seen as a trophy because of my heritage and looks. He showed me off when we were together to all his family, and I found out it was his family tradition to marry people from out of the country, to have a higher status. Meanwhile, my ex's parents, let's call them Bob and Karen, were being all nice and sweet to me. I never had any trouble with them, and considered them really nice people until now. They texted me to ask how I was feeling, and if I needed anything. But by that time I decided I didn't want any contact with a family. I wouldn't take money from him for childcare because I didn't want any visits, though I was planning on allowing Bob and Karen to visit, and take care of the baby. Ex wasn't really worried about the baby, and was more thinking about winning me back. But when he found out it was not going to happen, he left the case altogether. Fast forward my pregnancy, I start dating my best friend, let's call him Isaac, and he helps me through the pregnancy, and is there with me even during childbirth. Everything goes well, and I have a precious baby girl. I fall in love with her immediately. Everything goes well when I get a text from Bob saying he was outside my house and for me to come out because he had some gifts for baby. You see, in Ecuador, there is a culture where you have to call beforehand about a week prior to visiting, and it was highly disrespectful if you just showed up at someone's house demanding to be let in. I got slightly irritated by this fact, but came out. He and his wife Karen were there, and handed me a bag of gifts from all the family members. They told me about me and the pregnancy, and said if they could see the bee. I told them that at the moment she was sleeping, and we didn't want to let anyone in so she wouldn't wake up. She was really small yet, about 3 weeks I think. The sweet couple's face turned and twisted into pissed off entitled grandparents. Karen struck with her fist against their car, a small Chevrolet Evo, and the father just grumbled, but then calmed down and said that they gave me presents and now have the right to visit their grandchild, that I must allow them in, and that Karen wanted to hold her. You see, to me, respect is really important, and I can't stand being disrespected. I just gave birth 3 weeks ago, can barely walk, and now they want to come in and hold my baby. No way. I just changed my mind about allowing them in her life. So the conversation went as follows. Me, excuse me, but I can't let you in right now. She is sleeping and wakes up easily. Bob, oh, come on. It's just a baby. She will fall asleep right after a few minutes. Just let us come in. Karen has come all this way to carry her. Me, I'm sorry, but it's a no. Thanks for the gift though. Next time, it would be nice if you called prior to coming so I can make sure everything is ready for your visit. And you might get to hold her. Karen, you have no right to hold the baby away from us, even if your relationship with X didn't work. She is our grandchild. Me, I understand. But as I said before, I really don't want to wake her up. Karen, how dare you disrespect me? That is our baby, and we have the right to see her. Bring her out now. Me, no, sorry, I can't. Bob, cutting me off, that baby is worth a lot to us. You know that in our family bloodline is very important. We need to take pictures of her and send them. Did she get blonde hair and green eyes like you? Me, she has amber hair and blue eyes. Bob, that will do. Bring her out now. Me, sorry, I am tired. I usually sleep when she sleeps, so I'm going in right now. Karen, Bob, do something about it. She is kidnapping our baby and keeping it away from us. I closed the door behind me, feeling in shock. They treat my baby as if she were a dog that had a pedigree. They wanted to show her pictures to the other family they had. I did not like this one bit. I went inside while Bob was trying to calm Karen, assuring her that I would let them see the baby next visit. No, I won't. Fast forward about a month, and I receive a call that they are here. Great, they didn't call prior to the visit once again. Now I have a chance to talk to them. I come out with my dad this time. He is a really tall, well-built man with a stone face. He is really kind and funny, but has a dead serious face most of the time. I wanted him to be with me just in case they became aggressive or something. This time even X decided to show up. Bob, hello OP. Can we see the baby now? We got you more gifts. Me, sorry, but you won't be seeing the girl. You see, I want to start my life fresh. I made many mistakes in the past, and I do not want to get involved with you or your family at all. I have now moved on and want a future with me and my daughter. Even if I get a chance to find someone else and marry, I don't want my daughter to have 3 sets of grandparents. I hope you understand that. I said way much more stuff. But this is a summary of everything. Karen's face turned red, as if I just had insulted her with the worst kind of words, and she just leaned on her car and hid her face while starting to sob silently. I kind of felt bad for her, but all that sympathy died soon. Bob chuckles, oh, kids these days. Listed, we are her grandparents and have the right to see her and have her and do what we wish with her. She is our family, so don't act immature. You bring her out now so we can see her. Also on holidays she will be coming to our place and spending it with us. You are just a child and don't know anything about life. I'm 22. She will suffer if she doesn't spend time with us. You have no right to take her away from us. I understand you are angry at X, but that doesn't give you the right to behave like this. X, yes, she is mad at me and does this as a payoff. Bob, our family is very prestigious, so the child will be very happy. Also, everyone will like her because she is foreign blood. And we want to make sure everyone knows how special she is. Me, my decision is final. Sorry, I will not hold contact with you, nor will you get to meet my daughter. Karen, how dare you little immature girl take this right away from us. We are her grandparents. My dad, who was already fed up with all this that happened, raised his voice, which he never does, and sounded pretty terrifying. His Spanish isn't really good, but he made himself clear. Dad, okay, you listen to me now. My daughter has suffered enough with people like you. She wants to start a new life. And it will be best for her daughter to do the same. She doesn't have to be with people like you, so just leave her alone. OP. Let's go inside now. Karen then pushed past me, and screeching like a mad banshee tried to push her way past my house's gate and into my yard. This surprised me, her husband Bob, and even X, but not my dad. He just stood in the way, blocking her from going in till she got tired and walked back to her car, defeated. Bob, we are family and have rights. Remember that, you immature girl. You are hurting your daughter. So let me tell you some stuff about parental rights in Ecuador. The mother has sole custody until the father proves he is the father with a DNA test. He has 5 years to prove it, or he loses his right to parenthood. Only the father has the right to move something in court. It costs about $1,500 to call me for court, $1,500 to bring the DNA test result, $1,000 to state that he is the father, and $1,500 to set out the visit rights and such. Being an unemployed teen with no career, and no time living in a city 6 hours away from me, he didn't have all that money. Nor did his parents. And he also only cared about winning me back to show me off. He didn't care about his daughter. And I couldn't be happier. His parents couldn't bring anything to court since they are not the immediate relatives. So I am more than sure that they won't be able to do anything. After all that, they texted me a few times trying to come over and visit my daughter once again, but all their offers were denied. And after they came without announcement once again, and nobody came out, that was the end of it. Or so I thought. So I live pretty far from them, in the next city, which is a 2-hour drive. And close to my house, there is a shopping mall I often go to. So I was on a stroll there with my Isaac, who, apart from being pretty handsome, practices martial arts, and is buff as F. His friends nicknamed him the demigod because of it. So he is quite intimidating. And when he gets pissed, all hell breaks loose. Also, he is really protective of me and my daughter. Every Saturday or Sunday, we go out just to walk around, buy a snack, and just have a chill time dating with my daughter in her stroller. Mostly sleeping. X knew I used to do this. and must have told his parents. Because while we were waiting in line for our ice cream at Baskin-Robbins, I had the stroller next to me, not in front as usual because it would take unnecessary space in the line. So I have the stroller on my right and Isaac is on the left. I have my hand on the stroller, and we are just chatting along, waiting our turn when I feel light movement in the stroller, and turn to see if my daughter, let's call her Abby, woke up. To my surprise and shock, I see Karen trying to sneak Abby out of her stroller, obviously waking her up and making her make muffled cries. Me, what do you think you are doing? I say while I try to take Abby from Karen's arms, but there is a stroller between us, and Karen turns around and starts to speedily walk off with crying Abby in her arms. You must as well know that in Ecuador, you might be getting robbed, harassed, or attacked, and almost no one cares or will do anything about it. So all the people in line just stared. I walked past the stroller to chase after her, but Isaac was faster and managed to catch up to Karen, who was pretty fat and slow. He snatched Abby carefully from her arms, while she was having a fit, handed her to me, and proceeded to scream at Karen. I noticed that Bob was in the car peeping at her, but not wanting to come out. They wanted to make a run for it, and steal my daughter away. Isaac, how dare you touch Abby, and worse, even steal her away from her stroller. You dumb B0X6. Karen then sat on the ground and started screaming for security. They came and asked what's going on. Security guy 1. Ma'am, what seems to be the problem? Karen, they kidnapped my daughter. That baby is mine, and they took her away from me, and then shoved me to the floor and kicked me in the guts. Security guy 2. Is that true? Isaac, no, of course not. She stole my girlfriend's baby from her stroller, and tried to make a run for it. She is the mother of OP's ex. I just stopped the fat B, and returned the baby to my geef. Karen, he is lying. He stole her from me. I am the mother. And she looks like me, don't you see? Security guy 1. Well, let's check security footage to see if. Karen interrupting, there is no need for that. We are wasting time. Just give me my daughter back now. She needs me. So security made us all go and check the footage when they proved that Karen was following us for about an hour before trying to snatch Abby, while Bob was waiting in the car for her all this time. Then the footage showed everything else that happened. The security guy said he would have to call the police. So while he dialed the cops, she once again tried to snatch the now sleeping Abby from my arms, but without luck because Isaac was right there and blocked her way before pushing her down to the ground. Karen just stood up and started screeching, while trying to go past him again, throwing punches and kicks. The security guards had to restrain her until the police came and took her away. So that was the last I heard from them. And I hope it stays that way. You see, some of you may think that it's wrong for me to keep my daughter from her father. But knowing that first, he has no interest in her, second, he is an abuser, and third, he might only use her as an object to show her off to his friends and family, makes me believe I am making the right choice in protecting her from all the pain that might bring to her in the future. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.